Hello world. Hello. Anybody out there yet? Testing one, two, testing. Can you hear me okay? Thumbs up emoji or something would let me know. Testing one, two, testing, testing. Testing one, two. Testing, testing. So we'll hang on for a few minutes. I don't think we have anybody in the live yet. Testing one, two. Excellent. Hi, Jennifer. So we'll give it a couple of minutes and let some more people get in. I'm not sure how you tell who's in the room. Let me see. I see event logs. I don't know. So I'll give it just one more minute and then I'll start. Excellent. Hi, Wit. So I'll tell you a little bit about what I'm doing today. Well, first of all, I want to thank Juanita and the Virginia Children's Book Festival for putting this together in these strange times. What I want to do today is a little bit of story time. I'm going to be reading from my middle grade novel, The Last Day of Summer, which you can see right next to me. And I'll take some questions afterwards if there's anything you all want to talk about, and I may tell you a little bit of the background behind the book. But just so you know, everybody participating in this Virginia Children's Book Festival series here on Facebook Live, you can purchase their books from Chop Suey Books of Richmond, Virginia. They've been a longtime partner of the festival. Ward, the owner of that store, is fantastic, and it would just be awesome if we can all support small business during these weird times. So I'm going to start reading, tell you a little bit about the last day of summer first. If you don't know, the last day of summer is like if the Hardy Boys crashed into the Phantom Toll Booth. So it stars the legendary Austin Boys of the supernaturally weird Logan County, Virginia. There's Otto, who's this loving know-it-all, and Sheed, who's sometimes cranky but always cool. And when they're tricked into freezing time on the last day of summer by the mysterious Mr. Flux, they unleash a bunch of weird creatures they either have to align with or battle to save the day. And so, what I want to do for our time together is read all of chapter one and a little bit of chapter two, just so we have some time left to talk. And what I'll do throughout is I'm reading from my iPad. I'm going to turn it around when I get to the illustrations because Dapo Adiala, who's a fantastic illustrator, is going to be a superstar. He did all the drawings, the cover, the drawings within the book. So I don't want you to miss any of that as I read. Hey, McGlone family, thanks for coming. Hey, Sharon. So I'm going to start, and afterwards we can chat a bit. So this is the last day of summer, chapter one. BTSFOASTG. And Dapo put a nice little calendar drawing in there for us. First of all, Grandma's teacup pig calendar lied. It said the last day of summer was September 21st. Everyone already knew September was a bad month with no good holiday in sight after Labor Day. 4th of July was at least 2 months gone. Halloween was more than a month away. But the real last day of summer was the last Monday in August. Cousins Otto and Sheed Austin had known this for a while, thanks to the big red circle around the last Tuesday in August. Inside that circle, equally red in Grandma's handwriting, were the letters BTS, FOA, STG. When they asked about it, Grandma said it's an acronym. It means back to school for Otto and Sheed, thank goodness. The boys began thinking of it as an acronym because it meant back to alarm clocks and homeroom and homework. AC. In Logan County, Virginia, summer ended when school started. Tomorrow. And, thanks to an unfortunate headline in the latest printing of the county's newspaper, Otto was not going to take it lying down. Wake up, Otto said. He finished tying his sneakers with jerky, irritated motions and stretched one leg across the gap between their beds, nudging Sheed's mattress with his toe. He'd allowed his cousin to snooze long enough, given the circumstances. Sheed said, "Oh, stop." Otto had risen with the sun, eager and upbeat like most mornings. As was his habit, he padded downstairs in socked feet, eased Grandma's front door open, and plucked the latest issue of the Logan County Gazette off the porch. There was usually some mention of him and his cousin in the folds of the daily paper, some new clipping to collect. The county folk loved reading about their local legends. But what he saw on that morning's front page would never benefit from his admirable scrapbooking skills. He'd stomped back upstairs, got dressed in tan cargo shorts and his favorite t-shirt. It was green, with big white block letters that read, "Stand back, I'm going to deduce." And there was work to do. Come on, Sheed, it's the last day. I'm going to pause to show you one of Dapo's excellent illustrations. The angry air from Sheed's nostrils puffed the sheet over his face into a tent. I know, that's why I want to sleep. You only want to sleep because you haven't read this morning's paper. I don't read any morning's newspaper. What are you even talking about right now? Sheed burrowed deeper under his covers, like a mole in dirt. All around, on haphazardly aligned shelves the boys had fastened to the walls themselves, amidst the model cars and their made-up superhero drawings, were souvenirs from all the adventures they'd experienced throughout the season. A mason jar holding a shiny pigeon-sized husk from a laughing locust, a lock of banshee hair that sang them to sleep whenever the moon was full, and many more things unique to, or drawn to, the strange county in which they lived. Of all the trophies, it was the two keys to the city awarded to them by the mayor of Fry that filled Otto with the most pride. Until today. He smacked Sheed's shoulder with the rolled up newspaper, then peeled back his blanket. You don't really want to waste time sleeping on our last day of summer, our last chance to have one more adventure before you know what starts. Otto refused to say the S word. Yes! Sheed covered his head with a pillow. Otto yanked the cord that zipped their blinds to the top of the window frame, flooding the room with bright sunshine. Sheed threw his pillow. Otto dodged it easily. Sheed said, "Fine, I'm up. What's with you?" Now that he had Sheed's attention, Otto unfolded the offensive newspaper for his cousin to see. Sheed read it, then groaned, then smacked his forehead. "I can't believe you woke me up for this." Otto turned the newspaper so he could reread the worst news ever, unclear why Sheed wasn't more upset. The headline read, "Epic Ellisons receive third key to the city." They broke the tie, Otto said, his gaze flicking to their meager pair of keys. They somehow seemed duller in this morning's light. The Epic Ellisons, aka twin sisters Wiki and Lean, were the county's other adventurers. Some might say they were rivals. Not Otto, though. In his mind, the Ellisons were clearly the inferior duo. Otto might have to talk to Mayor Ahmed about handing those keys out willy-nilly. But in the meantime, come on! Otto grabbed his notepad and tiny always there pencil. The legendary Austin boys never sleep late. "That nickname's stupid," Sheed said, not meaning it. "This legendary Austin boy does sleep late whenever his annoying cousin lets him." "Exactly." Otto slipped on his backpack, cinching the straps tight against his shoulders. "Like I said, never." She'd rounded the corner into Grandma's kitchen and found Otto shoveling a final spoonful of cereal into his mouth. He still wasn't happy about being dragged out of bed so early, but had somehow managed to get dressed despite feeling all yawny and stiff. He'd put on jeans that were spotted with permanent grass stains that were ripped at the knees, red tie tops, a white t-shirt, and his favorite purple Fry Flamingos basketball jersey. He flopped into his usual seat while combing a plastic wide toothpick through his, admittedly small but growing, afro, fluffing it out as far as it would go. First a fro, one day dreadlocks. A solid plan if he said so himself. "Don't pick your hair at the table," Grandma said. She faced the stove, never needing to actually see them to know they were breaking some rule or another. "Now go on and eat." She'd ceased his grooming and wedged his pick tight into his thick hair so only the handle protruded and dug into a bowl of Frosty Loops. Otto's foot tapped the tile floor impatiently, so she decreased his eating speed by half just to annoy his cousin. When she'd finally finished, Otto was on his feet, bouncing and fidgety. "Ready?" "I guess." "Hurry up then." The skin around Grandma's eyes crinkled as she narrowed her gaze in their direction. She said, "Boys, why you always got to be at odds? One fast, one slow. One say east, the other say west. Stop all that foolishness." She poked the teacup pig calendar, her finger right on BTSFOASTG. "That time's gonna fly by before you know it, so go on and enjoy your day and each other." But Grandma was wrong. The time wasn't going to fly by, and they would not be enjoying the day because things were about to get stranger than usual in Logan County. The legendary Austin boys just didn't know it yet. So I'm going to go on to chapter 2, Always Time for a Fan. But I'm going to skip ahead so we have time to talk, and I'm going to read you an abbreviated version, and this is going to be the scene where the boys meet the book's villain, Mr. Flux. And as you know, Otto's been wanting much more time for adventures, but you have to be very careful what you wish for in Logan County because you never know who's going to pop up with something devious to offer you. Mr. Flux stooped on one knee, his arms lost in the mouth of his bag while he searched. Finally, he sprang upright. "Here." Balanced on the man's palm was a camera, bulky, with a strap to hang around your neck and a slim slot along its front. It was the kind of device that seemed ancient. "I don't know if it will be much help to you," said Mr. Flux, "but a camera like this is special. It will capture the best time of your life. Doesn't that sound wonderful?" Not wanting to embarrass Mr. Flux when the gift was an obvious piece of junk, Otto accepted the offer and grabbed the camera. "Thank you. We'll put it to good use." "Would you?" Mr. Flux's unshadowed eye took on a puppy dog quality. "Would you honor me by taking a picture?" "Of you?" Otto asked. Mr. Flux twisted away slightly. "No. Of Fry, maybe. The view of the city is spectacular." Otto shrugged and raised the camera to eye level, and with his index finger he found the shutter release. "Yes," Mr. Flux said, joyful. "Just like that." Otto pressed the button. There was a flash in the viewfinder, a blinding white light visible for a second, and then a motorized whir from inside the camera. A stiff plastic square, white border, black center, unspooled from the slit along the camera's front. She'd pulled the filmy paper free. Already the black center had lightened, familiar images of county landmarks brightening into view. "That photo," Mr. Flux said, "will be an eternal keepsake of the day. Would you two like a similar photo of yourselves?" She'd stared at the photo in his hand and saw no reason to object. Otto gave the camera to Mr. Flux. "Excellent," he said. "Squeeze in tight. I want to get all of you." Mr. Flux raised the camera. "On 3. 1, 2. Another flash, not from the camera, but from the sky. A blinding electric blue hole ripped the very air next to Mr. Flux, and a man ejected from it feet first, as if from the end of a steep water slide. He kicked Mr. Flux, knocking the camera free. The stranger scrambled to his feet, whipping his head around, startled and confused. "Did it work? Is this the right day?" he said, his eyes resting on Otto, then Sheed. And for a moment, his face flickered, the confusion replaced by a slight smile. But then he glanced sideways at the man he'd kicked over. Flux. Mr. Flux began to rouse, but the stranger leapt on him, pinning him, or trying to. The pair rolled in the grass, and the way they grappled, it didn't seem like the stranger would be able to hold Mr. Flux for very long. His dark goggles angled in the boy's direction, and he yelled, "Take that camera and run, and whatever you do, don't take any more pictures." So, if you didn't catch it from everything that's going on, the boys are in a bit of trouble, and it's only going to get worse as the day goes on. But they are resourceful, and they will have allies. And if you want to see some of the twists and turns that happen in Logan County, I would encourage you to find a copy of The Last Day of Summer. Chop Suey Books is handling book sales for the book festival. You can get a copy of The Last Day of Summer or any of the books from any of the featured authors in this virtual series. And I'll tell you a little bit about what inspired this book. And I hope that maybe you'll send me some questions. I think I can see any questions you may have in the feed. So I'll try to get, I see a couple popping up already. So I'll try to get to those in a moment. But The Last Day of Summer was partially inspired by The Phantom Toll Booth, a book by Norton Juster. It's a classic children's book, and it has a lot of fun wordplay in it. So when I was thinking about this book, the thing I wanted to do was play with the various phrases that we in our society use for time. Um, Obviously, this book is about freezing time, but when the town is frozen and the boys have to go in and try to fix things, they end up running into these creatures called clock watchers. And they are essentially the creatures that we don't see, they're invisible, but they're responsible for making time move the way we're used to. And once time is frozen, these creatures are out of a job. And so some of these creatures include a character named Witching Hour, whose whole job is to create mischief, but only at a certain time of day. And then there's a character called the Golden Hours, or rather, there's two of them, and they represent the two times of day when the sun is either setting or rising, where it's really great light for taking pictures. There are other clock watchers like Father Time, who's like the dad and the boss. And there's a clock watcher named Crunch Time who's always stressed out. And so I took the opportunity to play with a lot of the phrases we use when describing time and tried to make them into characters that the boys could interact with and you readers could have fun with. And I see one of the questions waiting for me is, when is there going to be a sequel? So actually, the sequel is done. It's called The Last Mirror on the Left. I think it may come out this year, but I'll be honest with you, with all the craziness in the world, I'm not exactly sure of the exact date, but it's another adventure with the boys. I'm not going to tell you what the title means. You'd have to read Last Day of Summer, and if you did, there's a character in there that I think you'll recognize as being significant to that title being The Last Mirror on the Left. Dapo Adiala is going to be back to do some spectacular illustrations. He's already done a cover, and I think Kwame Alexander, who's the head of the imprint these books published from, will be showing that cover sometime soon. So I'll be sure to let you know. Let's see, I see some other questions. Do you like writing middle grade or YA best? I don't think it's a matter of one being better than the other. I like them for different reasons. I really enjoy writing middle grade because going out and reading with that age group is just super fun. It's a whole different energy than when I'm going out and meeting readers for my young adult stuff. YA though, it allows me to write a little bit more mature and darker things, and I like to have that division. Not a lot of people know that when I started my career, I wanted to write scary books, and I've written some short fiction that would apply, that would be classified as scary, but I still like to kind of deal with darker subjects, and I think the YA books are better suited for that than the middle grade. Let's see. I was also, someone said they were also reminded of A Wrinkle in Time. Did that also inspire you? Um, probably in the sense of just the children being very adventurous. I think A Wrinkle in Time goes a little more cosmic than I do in my book. We stay firmly planted in Virginia, even though the county is weird. But I did admire that book and also the movie from Ava DuVernay. So I could see some similarities there that probably did leak into my book. Let's see. I see you, Brian. Hey, Brian. Heather, hi. Um, Someone wants to know how old I am. I turned 40 last November. So um, that accounts for some of the gray hair you see on my chin right now. Let's see, what else? Did I miss any questions? I think I got all your questions that are there now. Oh, here we go. Were you adventurous as a child? Certainly, and that played a part in inspiring the last day of summer because the Otto and She characters, they're cousins, they ride bikes all around their town, and that's pretty much like me and my cousins growing up. So that part is lifted directly from my childhood. Now, certainly growing up in Hopewell, Virginia, the place isn't as weird as the city of Fry or Logan County as a whole, but we had some fun times and we had really solid imaginations. When will we see the movie version of The Last Day of Summer? That is a good question. So, for those who don't know, The Last Day of Summer has been optioned for film or TV by the producer Lee Daniels. If you don't know the name, he's responsible for a show called Empire, also a show called Star, and it's up to him when he's gonna try to make this thing happen. Hollywood doesn't necessarily move fast all the time, so they just acquired the rights to Last Day last summer, and I don't suspect anything's going to happen super fast, but I'm confident in the team, and so I hope eventually we get to see Otto and Sheed's adventures on either your big screen or your television. How old were you when your first book was published? The first book to publish was Fake ID, which was my young adult mystery novel. It published in 2014, so I was about 33 or 34 then. The book sold when I was 31, but it took a long time to go through the editorial process and get it out into the world. What are you working on now? So, I just finished writing a draft of the third Otto and She book. We don't have an official title yet, but I just literally turned that in about 2 or 3 weeks ago. So I'll be waiting on an edit letter to make revisions. And as of right now, I'm working on some stuff that I honestly cannot talk about. It's quite a bit different from the Otto and Sheed adventures. It'll probably be going back to YA more so. But I stay busy, so I hope to be able to share some of that with you soon. This one's from the McClone family. How many books have you written? So the number of books I've written total is probably about 13 or 14, but only 6 of them have been published because the first few just weren't that good. They were me getting better at this, and then there are several that will be coming out later. The Last Mirror on the Left will be the 7th published one. The third Otto and Sheed adventure will be the 8th, and then there'll be more after that. Let's see, from Jennifer. I love your work with We Need Diverse books. Can you share another recent diverse middle grade novel that you would suggest to readers? Absolutely. I would suggest Brandy Colbert's The Only Black Girls in Town. Brandy's a fantastic author. It's her first middle grade, and I actually had a chance to interview her on my Instagram page last Friday about her work. So I feel wholly confident telling you to go pick up Brandy Colbert's The Only Black Girls in Town. Let's see. We're at the 23-minute mark. We still have questions. So I think we're going to go at least a half hour. And if there are questions that go over, I'll stay on as long as they let me. Let's see. Would you ever write a book for small children? Absolutely. I want to be around long enough to write for everyone, small children to adult. And I want to write a picture book. But the thing is, I'm really very particular about studying the form thoroughly before attempting to write in it. I'm not one to just try to fire off something and say, hey, I wrote a picture book when I haven't really been working hard at it. So Though I want to do it eventually, it'll probably be a couple of years. Let's see, we got one from Heather. Is DJ Nice a great thing to happen with the quarantine or the greatest thing? Um, I would say he might be up there with the greatest thing. The DJ, the D Nice Club Quarantine Instagram live sessions have been wonderful. My wife and I were listening to one last Saturday, and it was like a dance party in our house. So that's very cool when you consider we're all stuck at home, and I really appreciate D Nice for doing that. Any other questions, y'all? So we may be at the end of our questions, and we're very close to the half hour mark, which is what we had scheduled. So if you have some questions, you can enter them. If not, I appreciate you for coming. The Virginia Children's Book Festival is probably one of my favorite festivals to attend every year. I've been coming since the beginning. I think the fifth year anniversary was last year. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. And I look forward to being able to come to Farmville and Longwood University for the next one whenever we're past all this craziness. If you're around and able to bring your children, I guarantee you will have a great time. Juanita does a wonderful job, her and her staff. Chop Suey Books, they're great about making sure people get whatever books they want or need. And I look forward to being able to do this with you in person whenever the craziness ends. So, if there are no more questions, I thank you for coming to Story Time. Be safe out there, follow the rules, stay home if you can, and we'll get through this together. Thanks, everyone. Take care. I'll talk to you soon.